Today on Network Africa, embattled DRC leader Joseph Kabila presses ahead with the establishment of a new cabinet as police tear gas anti-government protesters in the capital, Kinshasa. Zimbabweans get in the mood for Christmas shopping despite the country's cash crisis. Then a new survey by the World Health Organization reveals an estimated 46% of Africans suffer high blood pressure, the highest in the world. Hello everyone, I am Amarachi Ubani. Let's begin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where main opposition leader Etienne Tshisekedi has called on people to peacefully resist President Joseph Kabila's bid to remain in power beyond his mandate. This comes as Mr. Kabila defies calls for him to step down. Shortly after midnight, he announced the 74-strong team of ministers and deputy ministers making up his new cabinet. Meanwhile, sustained gunfire has erupted in Lubumbashi, DR Congo's second-largest city. Over in the capital, Kinshasa, 3 demonstrators have been killed by soldiers. 5 others were also injured, 2 of them seriously, in a shooting which occurred there earlier in the day. President Kabila's term in office expired at midnight on Monday, but the country has not held an election because it was rescheduled for April 2018 over issues concerning the voters' roll. There have been protests in the country since the postponement was announced. The VOA's William Clow joins us from Kinshasa, the capital of the DRC. William, it's great to have you on the program with us. What more do we know about the anti-Kabila protests going on in the country?
Well, they've already taken a pretty nasty turn. It's important to note at the outset that protest is currently banned in the country, and the military and the police have been deployed in massive numbers throughout the cities of the DRC, which means that gathering in numbers to protest is both difficult and dangerous. Already we've seen sporadic clashes in Kinshasa, in Lubumbashi, and in several other cities, which started just before midnight last night and have continued into today. We have had running battles throughout the city of Kinshasa. They're normally quickly dispersed with tear gas. But in the last couple of minutes, the UN Human Rights Monitoring Office here has published figures saying it has solid reports of up to 20 deaths since last night. So the situation isn't looking too good at the moment.
As you say, William, it's really not looking good. People are being wounded. No one seems to be condemning the violence that has erupted from this, right?
Well, I think now we have this figure from the United Nations, and we've got to bear in mind that there's lots of reports of injuries and deaths around the country, but it's very hard to verify, in part because the security forces have been accused of denying access to human rights monitors and the staff of the United Nations. So it'll take a bit of time, I think, for proper verification of numbers. But it's an important thing to note that one of the main reasons for the protests being conducted in this sort of clandestine and covert way is because protests are banned. And this protest ban has been roundly condemned as a violation of both Congolese people's human rights and indeed the Congolese population by the political opposition here, by civil society here, by the international community and by the United Nations.
President Kabila has gone on to announce a new cabinet recently, despite the volatility of the situation in the country. Is the government listening at all to what people are saying?
Well, this new government appointed last night, about 5 minutes before the midnight, will really struggle for recognition and legitimacy. It's a government appointed by a president just before what most consider to be the end of his official mandate. The most popular opposition politician in the country, or one of them, Etienne Tshisekedi, has declared Joseph Kabila illegitimate now. So in the eyes of many, this government will be seen as an illegitimate government of an illegitimate president.
William, thanks for keeping an eye on the situation of things in the DRC, and thanks for joining us on Network Africa. Do stay safe. Now, outgoing UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has made one last call to the international community to help stop the crisis in South Sudan, fearing it could turn out to be a genocide like the one experienced in Rwanda. South Sudan and neighboring Sudan have been in a civil war since 2013, and a shaky peace deal is currently being observed, though that has been threatened by fighting in the past few months. Let's turn to the latest from Gambia, where 11 of the country's ambassadors serving in missions around the world have called on President Yahya Jammeh to hand over power and congratulate his rival Adama Barrow. The diplomat's move comes in the wake of Mr. Jammeh's decision to challenge the outcome of the December 1st presidential election, which had initially accepted and even congratulated Mr. Barrow. They made the appeal in a joint letter. Among them were ambassadors serving in Beijing, London, New York, Moscow, and Brussels. Let me get a quote in here from that letter they sent to the president. The ambassador said, "We strongly appeal for you to accept the choice of the Gambian people and facilitate a peaceful transfer of power to the president-elect, Mr. Adama Barrow." The tone of their appeal sounds diplomatic rather than hawkish and credits President Jammeh's initial response to the result. A former permanent secretary of the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and acting chief executive officer of NEPAD, Ambassador Olukorede Willoughby, joins us now on the program. He's in Abuja. Ambassador, I'm glad you could join us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Are these ambassadors, these Gambian ambassadors, calling for President Jammeh to step down out of line? Are they violating diplomatic principles by sending this letter to the president?
I'm afraid the line is a bit bad. But if I understand your question correctly, some ambassadors have asked the foreign president or outgoing president, Yahya Jammeh, to step down?
Yes, yes. Are they violating diplomatic principles by saying this and by sending this letter?
It is the most unusual step to take, considering the fact that Yahya Jammeh, appointed them. But I guess that their larger loyalty to the Gambian state. But President Jammeh, having appointed them, he also reserves the right to recall them before he leaves office. So my suspicion, and this is speculation, is that he may want to react by recalling them, just like he has recalled the ambassador to the U.S.
President Jammeh has shown no interest in stepping down, Ambassador. So what happens if come January 18th, he remains in power?
The situation is fluid, and it is difficult for me to speculate what can happen from the 18th. But let me put it this way, that we have an impasse. And what you're likely to have is a question of, ECOWAS, Africa, and the whole world range against President Jammeh. He's on ground. He has control of the armed forces. I understand that there have been some promotions recently to consolidate their loyalty. He's likely to begin. But with so much forces range against him, what we have is a situation of who is going to blink first, himself or the international community. It is fluid, and it is a situation that is a little bit difficult to call at the moment.
I can imagine, Ambassador. President Yahya Jammeh has been in power for 22 years. So why is the international community intervening now in the country's political situation? Is it because someone else won the election, or is it because they see a window of opportunity to get him out?
I think it's because someone else has won the elections now. Because let's face it, if the people of the Gambia say they want President Jammeh or Yahya Jammeh in power, it is not for the international community to decide otherwise, even though some sections may not like him or like his face. But if the people of the Gambia have spoken loud and clear, even though it was initially 9%, now it is 4%, there is no cause. There is no legitimate cause for Yahya Jammeh to remain as president. He has to leave.
Ambassador Willoughby, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa and sharing your thoughts. 10-year-old Maggie Mamoun, who was critically wounded in a suicide bombing at a church in the Egyptian capital Cairo earlier this month, has died. This raises the death toll from the attack to 27. Maggie's funeral is scheduled to hold at the same church that was bombed. Egypt's so-called Islamic State affiliate has said it was behind the bombing, although the authorities have blamed the banned Muslim Brotherhood group. Meanwhile, police in Zurich have found the body of a gunman who shot and wounded 3 people at an Islamic center in the city. Most of the center's congregation comes from Somalia, Eritrea and North Africa. The attacker had opened fire Monday evening at a Somali Islamic center close to Zurich station. A body and a gun were later spotted under a bridge a few streets away. Police confirmed it was the attacker. The only information police have given so far is there is no indication of a link with so-called Islamic State. 2 victims of the shooting, aged 30 and 56, were severely wounded, while the third man in his mid-30s was in a less serious condition. Local media is reporting that around 10 people had been at the center when the gunman opened fire. Entered the building at around 5:30 p.m. local time, wearing dark clothes and a woolen hat. Well, preparing for the holidays amid economic uncertainty is not easy, but Zimbabweans are trying to keep up the Christmas cheer. This comes as the country is grappling with a severe economic crisis. That notwithstanding, people are looking forward to Christmas 2016.
Even as the Christmas lights go on in Harare, many Zimbabweans are struggling to find the holiday cheer. At independence from Britain in 1980, Zimbabwe was regarded as one of Africa's most promising prospects, but its economy has nearly halved since 2000 after the violent seizure of white-owned commercial farms and disastrous printing of money. Today, Zimbabwe is grappling with a devastating drought that has left more than 4 million people facing hunger, while the worst financial crisis in 7 years has fueled some of the biggest anti-government protests in a decade. Clever Mabachi, a street vendor, says his seasonal trade in Christmas decorations has taken a hit. I've been selling Christmas decorations since 2009, but this year does not look promising in terms of sales because of the cash crisis. But being Christmas, people will spare little to buy decorations, but it's definitely not the same. Last month, the country introduced bond notes as a new currency to ease the shortage of US dollars. The bright green notes have been accepted by most businesses and black market traders and are valued at 1-to-1 with the dollar. But analysts fear the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe could print more than a stated $200 million issuance limit and plunge the economy back into the hyperinflation seen before 2009, when the local currency had to be scrapped to save the economy. Businesses are being encouraged to accept the bonds, but there are still limits on withdrawals and fears that the cash crunch will devalue savings.
You have a situation where people have never even been able to access their money for a long time, and most of them are desperate. So it's like a question of really grinding people until they are desperate. And people need, this is the festive season, people need to buy stuff for the holidays, people need to prepare for the agricultural season. So you literally have forced people into a situation where they have no choice but to accept these bonds.
Lenders, including the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, are demanding cuts in the wage bill and the clearance of $1.8 billion in debt arrears before they agree to new funding, preventing Harare from securing any extra financing from the two institutions. With the government cash-strapped, it has been unable to pay civil servants like teachers and health workers.
Still ahead on Network Africa. Nearly 46% of Africans suffer from high blood pressure, according to the World Health Organization. Time to head to the hospitals to have your pressure checked. Do join us again.